Okay, we're gonna ignore the fact that my hair is still a little bit wet. I just got out of the shower and I don't have time to wait for it to dry before I have to have this video filmed, so. Hello everybody, my name is Danny and welcome back to my channel and welcome to my favorite video to do each month. It is my September wrap-up and October Skee-B-R. To no one's surprise, I am doing more readathons in October, but before we get to that, I have to go over all the books that I read in September for readathons because I just enter so many readathons and I am just gonna get right to it because there are a lot of books. So the first book that I read was actually Jujutsu Kaisen, volume 17. Ignore the receipt sticking out of the top, still haven't taken that out. But this was actually not for any readathons, and it also wasn't on Skee-B-R. I just picked this up because I wanted to. This actually came out in August, but there was just so much going on. My boyfriend and I didn't have time to pick it up, and so we finally got it and read it, and I say the same thing every single time I read a Jujutsu Kaisen volume. I just need the next one. The next one does not come out until December, so it's a little bit far away, and it's like the end of December too, so a couple of months to wait, and I feel like I can't tell you what the story is about because this is volume 17, so just go back to one of my earlier Skee-B-R videos and you've probably seen me talk about one of the earlier volumes, but this was the first thing I picked up this month. After that, I picked up Bridge to Terabithia, which was a Skee-B-R prompt book, and also for the Newberry Nostalgia readathon that I did, and I gave this a 7 out of 10. I did feel very emotional. I didn't cry, which I kind of expected to, but I feel like maybe I didn't feel as emotional about it as I expected because I already knew what was going to happen because I saw the movie when I was younger. Still, pretty good book. It does end kind of abruptly, but not in a bad way, I just wish it was a little bit longer. Then I picked up The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This was also a Newberry Nostalgia book. You'll see that for almost every book that I read this month, it was to fit a prompt for Newberry Nostalgia, but I really, really loved this. This was a reread. I gave it a 10 out of 10. I cried throughout the last 2-3 chapters. This was so good. I adore this book, and anyone who likes witchy middle grades, read this book because you will also love it. It's so good. After that, I picked up Doll Bones by Holly Black, which I gave a 9 out of 10. This was my first Holly Black that I've ever read, unless you count the Spiderwick Chronicles, which she co-wrote with someone else. This was my first, just Holly Black book, and I liked it. I wish this was a little bit longer. I feel like that happens a lot with middle grade with me, is that I just wish it had a little bit more space to breathe. But I understand that middle grade books are shorter than other books because they are meant for a bit of a younger audience, so what am I gonna do about it? Then I picked up The Witch of Blackbird Pond by Elizabeth George Spear, and this was, you guessed it, a Newberry Nostalgia prompt book, and I gave this 8 out of 10. I liked it more than I expected to. The first chapter was rough, let me tell you. I was not vibing, and I was like, maybe I should just put this down and not pick it back up. But I gave it a couple more chapters, and then I started to really get into it. I actually remember my sister hating this book when she had to read it for class in 5th grade, and I think it's really funny that I ended up really enjoying it now. Then I read Genesis Begins Again by Alicia D. Williams, which I gave 9 out of 10 stars, and this was a little bit out of my comfort zone. It's written in AAVE, which if you didn't know stands for African American Vernacular English, and it's not really something I'm super familiar with because I didn't grow up in an area with a prominent Black community, so I didn't really hear that growing up a lot, and reading it in a book was very I don't want to say jarring, but it was very much different from what I am used to reading in books. But I figure it's no different than if I were to pick up a book written in a British English style or Canadian English. It's just the same language, just a little bit different. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book, and I'm very glad that I read it. And then I tried to read Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine, and I say tried to read because I ended up DNFing this book at 21%, and I could not get through this. I did not like the voice of the main character. I thought she was very annoying and kind of I'm not like other girls kind of thing, and also there's just a lot of fat phobia in this book. Like, I literally only read like 30-40 pages, and the way the stepsisters are treated is so intrinsically tied to the fact that they are overweight and eat a lot, and like it just gave me such a bad taste. I'm like, I can't keep reading this book, so I DNF'd it, and I don't feel ashamed about that. Oh, I forgot to mention what Readathons the past couple books are for. So Genesis Begins Again was for New Bear Nostalgia, and also Season-a-thon Academy, which was the other readathon that I was doing this month. And Ella Enchanted was also for both of those, and was also a Skee-B-R pick. So something that hit all three things I was doing this month, and I ended up DNFing it, but it's fine. Then I read The Wednesday Wars by Gary D. Schmidt, which is also for all three things, Skee-B-R, Newberry Nostalgia, and Season-a-thon Academy. I gave this a 10 out of 10. It was so amazing. I'm not going to get too much into it here. If you want to know more of my full thoughts, then definitely check out my video next week, which is a vlog that I did, and I finished up reading this book while doing that vlog. I really hope I didn't say in that vlog that I'll give my full thoughts here, because I might have said that now that I'm thinking about it. I don't remember. Yeah, I really loved this book. This is a book that I read for the first time literally half my life ago, because it was 12 years ago, and I'm so glad that I enjoyed it probably more now than I did then. Then I read The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones, my favorite book of all time. I feel confident saying that now that I've read it more than once. I was so scared to read this, thinking that I wouldn't like it as much as I did the first time I read it last year, but I definitely did. It's so good. I cried. 10 out of 10. Could not recommend this book more. Then I picked up The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd Jones, and this is branded as being like in the same world as The Bone Houses. It's a prequel. Like, they should just say that. I forgot to say, The Bone Houses was for Skee-B-R and Season-a-thon Academy. This didn't hit any prompts. I didn't know that I was going to get this book. This was my birthday gift from my boyfriend, so I'm very glad he gave me this. I loved it so much. I gave it 10 out of 10. I feel like The Bone Houses is just a smidge above this one, but like, this is also like one of my favorite books of all time now. I feel like I need to read more Emily Lloyd Jones, because I feel weird saying that she's like one of my favorite authors when I've only read 2 of her books, but like, I feel like she's one of my favorite authors even though I've only read 2 of her books. These were absolutely amazing. And then the final book that I'm actually still in the middle of reading is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This is a Skee-B-R book, and a Newberry Nostalgia book, and a Season-a-thon Academy book. But I mean, I have like 3 more days until the end of the month, so I think I'm gonna finish it. I'm like almost halfway through, and plus this is a reread. I just have been slacking on the reading the past couple of days. But yeah. I love Neil Gaiman. I've read this book before and really loved it. This is definitely not one of my favorites of his, but I do really enjoy it, and it's weird. I don't think I've read this in like the past decade, so it's very odd going back to this and not remembering anything that happens. So I'm enjoying it though. I definitely look forward to finishing it out over the next couple days. And now that I've gone through all the books that I read in September, it is time to get to the books I will be reading in October, but first I'm going to talk about the 2 readathons that I'm doing this month. This seems to be like the thing. I'm always doing 2 readathons each month, which I think is manageable. But the first is Gothtober, and the second is Trick or TBR. Gothtober, I'm going to leave a bunch of links down below for both of these, but it's run by Ladette M. and Olivia's Catastrophe, I think is her channel name. I really should have written this down before filming this video. But there's this really cool game that you play to like pick out all of the prompts, so like each person gets a personalized prompt list, and the theme is like the final girl, and it's so cool. I've already got my 10 prompts, and I've assigned books to each prompt, so hopefully I can get some of those onto there. And then there's also Trick or TBR, which I don't remember who is running that. It's like 90% sure it's the same person who did the Summer Splash readathon a couple months ago, but I will again leave links down below. And there are 4 prompts for that one for reading. There's like a bingo board, so there's 4 book prompts and 5 like just activity prompts. So I've also assigned books to that to like fill those prompts, and hopefully I can fit those books onto my Skee-B-R, because otherwise I would be reading a heck of a lot of books, and I'm pretty sure that's all I have to say about those. So let's just get into rolling for October so we can see what I'm going to be reading for the spookiest month of the year. Okay, and here we go with the first roll for October. That was in the 20-point spot, which means it is an aesthetic prompt. Okay, and for the first roll, I got in the 20-point spot, which means I have an aesthetic prompt. So I've got my green bin over here. So we're gonna shake it up a bit and pull a prompt. Let's go with this one. We have a hardcover book. So I'm gonna look through the list of books that I put on my TBRs for Gothtober and Trick or TBR and pick a hardcover off of there. So somehow out of all of the prompts, I only had one hardcover listed, so that made it easy for me to pick for this prompt, and that book is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I talked about this book so much in recent videos, I feel like. I feel like I don't have to talk too much about it. It's a classic. For Gothtober, this is going to cover the prompt for a book you forgot you had. And I know what you're thinking. You just said you talked about it in so many videos. How can you say this is a book you forgot you had? This is a book that I forget I have anytime I go to make a TBR. Like, I feel like I'm never reaching for it, so I'm counting it. And then for Trick or TBR, this is also for the Haunted House prompt, which is a book that's been haunting your shelves. I've owned this for so long and haven't read it. I feel like it's been haunting my shelves. And so Wuthering Heights is the first book on my TBR for October. Okay, moving on, we have the second roll. That was in the 10-point spot, which means it's also an aesthetic prompt. And for roll number 2, I rolled in the 10-point spot, so it's another aesthetic prompt. So I've got the green bin back. I'm gonna shake it up. And let's go for one at the bottom. Oh, maybe that's a bad idea. They seem to be stuck together. Let's go for this one because it's already popping out. We have a floral cover. So Wuthering Heights would have worked for that. I'm gonna find a different book that has flowers on the cover. Alright, for floral cover, I'm actually going to go with a graphic novel, and that is Monstrous Volume 1, Awakening. And if you see on her jacket outfit thing, there's a bunch of floral patterns. There's like this flower down here. It's not like an overly floral cover, but there are some flowery elements, so I'm counting it. This is for Gothtober for my queer book, which honestly this could fit any of the like required prompts because there's 3 prompts that everyone gets for Gothtober, and that is a BIPOC author, a queer book, and a disability rep book, and this fits all 3 of those, so I'm very glad to be getting this on my TBR. And now we come to our third roll, and that was in the 10-point spot, so it's a genre prompt. Okay, for the third roll, I rolled another 10, so we have a genre prompt. So I've got my blue bin. I feel like we haven't had a genre prompt in a while. I don't know. Maybe we've only been having genre prompts and it's been aesthetic prompts we haven't had in a while. I feel like I've only been using one of my bins the past couple of months. Regardless, we're gonna shake this up and pull a genre prompt. Oh, this one was easy to grab. A contemporary. I don't read a lot of contemporaries, but I think I have 1 or 2 on my TBR list, so I'm going to go grab one of them. So for contemporary, I'm gonna go with 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. This has been on my bookshelf for like 2 years, and I was so excited to read it, and then I finally bought a copy at the secondhand bookstore I used to work at, and then immediately decided I didn't want to read it anymore. Like, that's a little bit harsh. I still wanted to read it, but like, I lost all immediacy in wanting to read this. I know Jen from Jen's Bookshelf loved this book when she read it, and that's why when I saw it at the secondhand bookstore, I bought it. But I think it's contemporary, so I'm putting it here. And this also covers both readathons for prompts. So this covers the prompt for Gothtober that I got that is a book with multiple survivors. I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of death in this book, but we'll see. And then this covers the pumpkin patch prompt for Trick or TBR, which is a book with orange on the cover. And like, there's not a ton of orange, but I feel like up here there's some orange. Again, we're bending the prompts a little bit. I'm considering this to have a bit of orange on the cover. It's fine. Alright, here we are with the 4th roll. And that was in the 20-point spot, so it is a friend pick. Okay, and for the 4th roll, I rolled in the 20-point spot, which means I have a friend pick. So I've got my D4 here. I'm going to use my metal one today, just the one that I picked out. So we're going to roll it and see who's going to pick my book for me. And that is a 2. Not that you can tell, but this little number up here is a 2. And that means one of my sisters gets to pick a book for me. I feel like every time I roll a friend pick, my sisters get to pick a book for me. But I will message them and let you know what book they pick for me. Okay, so I may have cheated just a little bit, but if we've learned anything from this video so far, it's that I am bending the rules a lot. So I ended up sending my sisters a list of books that I put on my Gothtober and Trick or TBRs and said pick from these books. So my sisters ended up picking Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I have this really awful Netflix adaptation cover. I don't know why that was such a hard word to say. Yeah, so I have read this before, but it was in like middle school, and I've wanted to pick this up for a couple years now, ever since one of my like fellow classmates in my thesis class back in fall of 2019, so I guess 3 years ago, did her thesis on Rebecca, and she did a really cool eco-critical look at this, and like I've wanted to read it ever since, and I'm finally gonna do that. And I also feel like it's perfect for this time of year, and this fits the Gothtober prompt for a gothic mood read. And now we're here for our 5th and final roll for October. That is in the 20-point spot, so it's an aesthetic prompt again. Alright, and my last roll was once again in the 20 spot, which means it's once again an aesthetic prompt. 3 in 1 month, that's really interesting. Yeah, I have my green bin back. We're gonna shake it up and pull one more prompt from it. And we'll go with this one because I'm already holding it. Oh, nope, I have 2. So I'm gonna put those both to the side and pull a different one. Just in the name of fairness. Make sure that I only have 1. Yes. Okay, so we have Cool Tones. So a book with like green, blue, purple-ish. I'm gonna go find one. Okay, so for Cool Tones, I'm gonna go with Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. I forgot her name. As you can see, yes, I bought this for 20% off at Target. I actually bought this on December 31st last year, but you can see there's quite a bit of purple up here, so I am counting that as cool tones. We're gonna ignore the pink, although I don't know if pink is cool tones or warm tones. I think it depends on if it's more purpley or more red. I think this is a purpley kind of pink, so I'm considering it cool tones. I don't know colors. I'm partially colorblind if you guys didn't know. Yeah, so Payback's a Witch. It's like a contemporary witchy romance, perhaps, which I feel like is a genre that's like blowing up these past couple of years, and I want to get in on that. And this is going to cover the Gothtober prompt for a fire word in the title or fire image on the cover, and as you can see, there's a bunch of stars, and stars are made of fire. So not only am I bending my Skee-B-R prompt, but I'm bending the Gothtober prompt as well. It's just the theme for the day. So I'm very glad to have gotten not only all books that were on my pre-made TBRs onto the Skee-B-R, but also all physical books. I feel like last month I read so many ebooks, and I'm glad to be getting back to some physical reading. So I'm going to do a wrap up now and show you all of the books that I will be reading, and then also tell you about the ones that aren't on my Skee-B-R that are on my TBRs for the Readathons. So not only do I have, oh, I'm already gonna drop them, not only do I have these 5 books to read for my Skee-B-R, which Wuthering Heights, it is like half of this because this is a bind up with Jane Eyre, so this is like deceivingly large. Not only do I have these 5 books, but I also have some other books that are on my Gothtober and Trick or TBRs that I will talk about. Let me put these down so I don't drop them everywhere. Oh, you can still kind of see them in the frame. That's cute. So first up, we're going to start with Gothtober, and we have If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, which I'm going to read for a book that features backstabbing or betrayal, which I haven't read this book, so I don't know if it actually does, but from the synopsis and what I've heard, I think it does. We'll see. Then for a beautiful book, I'm going to be reading The Golden Yarn by Cornelia Funk. This is the 3rd book in the Reckless series, also known as the Mirror World series. I'm just now realizing it could also have counted for a floral cover. Those aren't really flowers, they're like leaves, so maybe not. I don't know, but this is another book that I will be reading. This is my continuation of reading this series so that I can eventually get to the 4th book, which just came out this year. So I'm gonna add this to the stack. Then we have Tokyo Ghoul, which is going to be what I'm reading for a BIPOC author because it's by a Japanese author. And I've been wanting to read this manga since last October, but I couldn't fit it in, and for some reason I can't find myself reading this book anytime other than October, so I'm finally gonna get to it. Then we have All's Well by Mona Awad, which is another ebook that I'm going to be reading, and this is for disability rep, and I feel like I don't have much to say because I don't really know too much about it. I just know that the main character suffers from chronic back pain, and it's kind of a retelling of All's Well That Ends Well by Shakespeare. I am running out of breath. We have one more book to talk about for Gothtober, and that is In the Hall with the Knife by Diana Peterfrond. This is my book for the prompt book with a murder mystery. This is a clue story, as you can probably tell from In the Hall with the Knife. That's like a very classic clue phrase where it's a game where you're trying to figure out who killed someone and you have to say where they did it and with what. This is the first book in a series. I believe this is YA and it takes place at like an elite boarding school, so I'm very excited. So that is the last book for Gothtober, and luckily I was able to fit all Gothtober books onto my TBR for Trigger TBR. So we already went over my Pumpkin Patch and Haunted House books. For Witching Hour, which is a book with supernatural elements, I'm going with Tokyo Ghoul, which has ghouls in it, and those are supernatural. Then for Friend or Foe, it's a book with an unfamiliar genre or author, and for that I'm going with All's Well, because I've never read from Mona Awad before. I haven't read from a lot of the authors on this list, but Mona Awad is one that I definitely want to read more of and become familiar with. So, I mean, assuming I really like All's Well, which I really hope I am. So that's why I put All's Well for this prompt, and I've been rambling. So just as a little review, this plus I think 2 ebooks and a manga that I'll also be reading digitally, that's my TBR for October. So yep, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel for more content, and that way I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.